Okay, let's talk about the news this week regarding the Crystal Palace club captain Marc Guehi. The Football Association saying it will not take any formal action against the club or Guehi after the defender once again displayed a religious message on his kit. The England centre-back reminded about the FA's regulations on religious messaging after writing "I love Jesus" on his rainbow captain's armband for Saturday's match against Newcastle at Selhurst Park. He then ignored that reminder and displayed "Jesus loves you" on his armband during Tuesday's win at Ipswich Town. Of course, the Rainbow Laces weekend and campaign in conjunction with the Premier League and the anti-discrimination charity Stonewall, that saw players, of course, wearing rainbow armbands over the last couple of games. And it has been a big issue of contention. Of course, the Ipswich captain Sam Morsy deciding not to wear the armband at all. And, of course, Manchester United not wearing an LGBTQ plus jacket supporting the community before Sunday's win over Everton because defender Nusayr Mazraoui declined to take part in the initiative, also citing his Muslim faith, the same as Sam Morsy. So, of course, there has been plenty of discussion this week. We thought we would discuss it this evening here on Kickoff. I'm delighted to say, to help us do that, Chris Pauros, co-chair of the proud LilyWhites, of course, supporters fan group of Tottenham Hotspur, joins us on Kickoff. Good evening, Chris.
Hey, Hugh, how you doing?
Hi, Chris.
Listen, I'm delighted that you... I didn't get that reception. It's a bit unfair.
Oh,
that's my girl.
Bit excited. I'm delighted that
you... for a while.
I'm delighted you decided to join us because I know you've been inundated with requests to appear across media, and you've said on social media that you've declined most of those opportunities. So thank you so much for saying yes to our request. Now, I wanted to start with your big message out of this because I saw you posted on social media there are still, despite the negative stories that have been written this week, plenty of positives to take from the support that has been given over the last couple of games.
Absolutely, because I think one thing to remember is that this campaign's been going for nearly 10 years. It probably needs a bit of a refresh, but you've still got 18 club captains in the Premier League happily wearing an armband. Now, look, an armband in and of itself isn't really, what does it even matter? I mean, we had a big hoo-ha about armbands during the World Cup, didn't we? But I think there's something to say. There's loads of brilliant work going on across various football clubs, particularly around fan inclusion. And, we talked about the proud LilyWhites, we do loads of work with Spurs, and we want to make sure that we ensure that sense of community, visibility and belonging, and Rainbow Lace is part of that. And that massive progress flag at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is a hugely important symbol for LGBTQI plus Spurs fans. It's an unequivocal message that we're welcome and that we belong. And you can't underestimate how that feels if you felt like you don't belong for so long. Social belonging is a essential human need. Maslow's hierarchy ranks our need for belonging on par with our need for love. And humans are social creatures. We crave that interaction with others. And football's not only our national game, it's how we learn to work, play, celebrate and commiserate together as children. It's about community, identity and belonging. And being part of something matters, and belonging in our national game matters. So what's really important here is that's something that your players, and particularly your captains who are leaders in the team, understand. You saw my social media post. It's like, handing over an armband without context is like giving someone a user manual written in a language they don't speak.
You did make an interesting point there that I did wanted to discuss with you, please. Because I feel like you can't separate footballers from real life. We all actually do live in the same society. So I completely understand your point that if we do give footballers the armband, they need to know what it means. But I don't think we can completely take away from the fact that surely players, living in Britain in 2024 have a very good understanding of what it does mean.
Yeah, sure. But I guess the thing is that you can look at it let's have a think about context, because you're not just sort of saying, you wouldn't want to put anybody in danger with their families or with their faith, right? And we do know that in some parts of the world that it can be dangerous. And I think in that sense, it's like, okay, but have you ever spoken to anyone who's LGBTQI plus? Have you thought about, look, what I've just said at the top there? Is that a message that you've heard? I know that you live in the world, but we also all live in our own little bubbles, right? And you're surrounded by people that agree with you mostly. So having conversations around inclusion, anti-discrimination, what it means for fans. It's not about shaming anybody into compliance, but building on that understanding so you can lead with purpose. And then if you still choose not to wear it, you can talk about it constructively. But I'm very much of the belief that the LGBTQI plus rights and your like religious freedoms don't necessarily have to clash. Because, most religions at their core preach love, compassion, respect, harmony, and coexistence. So have that conversation.
The thing is as well, Chris, I mean, thanks for doing this, by the way, because I don't know about you, but these things make me feel so drained because I had to switch off my phone yesterday because the amount of like homophobic tweets I received based upon talking about this. I spoke about the fact that why we don't have an active Premier League player if somebody in their team can't even wear an armband or wear a jacket. Like, what world are we living in?
An active Premier League player who's open to saying that they're gay, basically.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly, because they do exist. But if you've got a captain that doesn't think they can even wear an armband, and then it just comes with all this stuff. So I completely understand where you're coming from. I think with Sam Morsey, like, religion, I completely get that. But I think actually the Marc Guehi one actually made me feel worse, to be honest. Seeing him write that, and I always come out with this statement today, but I felt like it made me feel like, I was sinning because of what he wrote. I didn't receive it that it's inclusivity. So I'm not buying that at all. That's just my personal opinion. And I felt worse by seeing him write that than I would have if I didn't see anyone wearing it. Now, furthermore, I think at the beginning of the season, Chris, why were these conversations not had? With the captains, with people, because if this was going to be a reality, we don't want to keep talking about these types of things. You'd like to think we've moved on. And when I hear people saying that it's throwing it in their faces, throwing it down their throats, I'm like, what are you talking about? It's an armband. It's an armband. Yeah. It's just an armband. Like, what is the big deal? No one's throwing it down anyone's throats. And most people that are saying these things are somebody that's never had discrimination or come under it. And that is the reality.
Chris, we got to get to the news. We will continue this conversation in a few moments' time. But briefly, if you want to respond to what Lianne had to say.
Just really quickly, I just think I'm completely with Lianne on that one, because I also think the world feels really volatile and LGBTQI plus rights are being rolled back all over the place. So even if it feels like, oh, well, it's just an armband, it's like, what's the message that you're sending to LGBTQI plus fans who feel like, we love football and this makes us feel like it doesn't love us back?
We will start this hour, though, by continuing our conversation around Marc Guehi, the Crystal Palace captain, who will have no formal action taken against him by the Football Association. The England centre-back was reminded about the FA's regulations over religious messaging after he wrote "I love Jesus" on his rainbow captain's armband for Saturday's game against Newcastle, then ignored that reminder and displayed "Jesus loves you" on his armband during Tuesday's win at Ipswich Town. And Lianne, you did say just before the news there that you felt that it was actually more painful than seeing him or any captain not wear the armband. I tend to agree with you on that. Obviously, I'm not LGBT, but I actually found it offensive. I don't know, people say, why you're not LGBT, so why are you taking offence to it?
You shouldn't have to be, though. Yeah, but you shouldn't have to be, and that's the whole point of an ally, that somebody that, can empathise but don't have to be feeling it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think, again, like, I have to be consistent, because Mazraoui also, as a Man United player, before people say I'm being biased, I think that's a joke as well that he won't wear a jacket. Sam
Morsey of Ipswich Town choosing not to wear the armband, and Nusayr Mazraoui choosing not to wear the jacket. I think people will have certain views on whether they agree with it or not, but ultimately choosing not to partake is one thing. I think what Marc Guehi did was very different, actually. He chose to wear the armband and write a message that I think many people, especially Christians, would say is a positive one. Marc Guehi, yesterday speaking to Sky Sports, described it as a message of truth and hope and inclusivity.
To who?
But I think
not LGBTQ plus people.
Well, this is my point. I think he totally took it out of context, trying to tell people, many of whom have been told by Christian religious groups throughout their life, that actually that they're either not welcome or they're sinners or that there is something wrong with them, that Jesus loves you, felt very, very offensive to me. He doesn't write "Jesus loves you" on every armband every weekend, which again would have changed the context for me.
Yes, and there wouldn't have been a big conversation. If that was the reality and it was consistent, then no one would really even be talking about it.
He chose to do it when he was wearing a rainbow armband, so it was very deliberate. And it also, for me, implied that Jesus still loves you, or Jesus loves you despite the fact that you're LGBT. Now, you can turn around and say to people, it's a message of inclusivity. And I say once again, I'm not LGBT, so I don't want to, force my opinion into others. But, looking at it from the outside, I felt that it was very clearly offensive. And Marc Guehi, in my opinion, does deserve to be banned.
Yeah, I mean, I found it like people say, well, you would because you identify with that community. But I think there's a bigger conversation here with regards to beginning of the season when the Premier League have these conversations with the captains and with the clubs. These are the conversations that I'd rather happen behind closed doors, because the way that hurts so many people from my community, seeing him write that on there, I don't think people fully understand that. Now, I come from a place, Hugh, where people can do whatever they want, each to their own. You can disagree with my lifestyle choices all you want, but I'm always going to be unapologetically myself, and that's the reality. But I do know how impactful it can be when people that identify with my community see their idols wearing that captain armband. It makes a difference. Now, to me, I've been, gay for a long time, so it's not like I see Bruno Fernandes wearing it and I think, oh my God, but I'm like, it's still impactful. And the fact that we're in 2024 and there's still, people in the stands saying derogatory homophobic chants, like those things are impactful. Yeah. And I don't think people realise that how sometimes it is scary for people to still go to games. Like there's a whole nother can of worms that this has opened, and I think that's the problem in itself, that if you saw the tweets that I was receiving yesterday, and to be honest with you, I'm desensitized to these things now because they're every single day for me. So it's like, it calmed down a little bit, but it's like, and I respect people's opinions and I respect religions, but I just think like people don't fully understand what it feels like to walk a day in the life of. You can empathize, but you can't say, well, we don't care what a player's sexuality is. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about a player's sexuality. We're talking about a captain wearing an armband, and they're completely different.
To show support.
Exactly, and I think this is where this has all been going all the last few days. The conversations have been, it's been about people that are trans, it's been about people that are gay. It's not about that. Within football, it's about how impactful that can be when a player is wearing it. Now, if they don't want to wear it, these conversations need to take place way before. Before.
We're respectful of everyone's opinions. talkSPORT is the place to have your say, so we're opening up the phone lines, 03717 223344. Just one more opinion before we get into them. It's not my own, but I heard Andy Brassel, of course, who we love and know well here on talkSPORT and part of our team. He was on the Football Ramble podcast and basically, posed the question whether you should be a Premier League captain in 2024 and represent a community, which is what the captain of these teams does, if you aren't supportive of inclusion, even on the basis of your religion. That's fine, you're allowed to have that view, but should you be the captain of a football team if you can't support an LGBT inclusion campaign? So I'll just put that opinion out there, and I'm happy to discuss it with you on talkSPORT this evening.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.